Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dan on Sports. Here we go. The first two rounds of the NCAA Men's College Basketball Tournament in the books. How am I doing? My picks. How's it turning out? Well, I still have my pick for the national championship winner alive, but I did take a hit as other brackets took a hit with Florida losing to Iowa on Sunday. But anyway, here's my record through the first two rounds of the tournament, plus the first four. I know there are a lot of people with their brackets, when they compile their records, do not include the first four, but I do. That's the fancy description, by the way, the first four of the play-in round, involving 4 games, 8 teams. For the weekend then, including the first four, I was 41-11 in my picks. Now, these are outright winners. I don't pick against the point spread. I don't do any of that. It's just these are my outright winners. I'm 41-11. I was 3-1 on my first 4 picks. I had Miami of Ohio wrong. I didn't think they would win. Then the first day of the tournament, day 1, on Thursday, I was 11-5. Day 2 of the first round, I was 15-1. I had 15 out of 16 winners. That brings us to day 3. On Saturday, the second round of the tournament, I was 6-2. And then on Sunday, I was 6-2. Day 4, which would be the last portion of the second round, 6-2. Florida really did a number on me, and, well, that's the way it goes. But 41-11 through the first 52 games of the tournament. Now, what about the Sweet 16? Where do I stand on the Sweet 16? Well, my teams that are still alive in the Sweet 16 are Arizona, Arkansas, Purdue, Michigan, Alabama, Iowa, or I should say Iowa State, Duke, St. John's, Michigan State, UConn, Illinois, and Houston. Iowa obviously is alive as well. How about that? The state of Iowa, the Hawkeye State, with both Iowa and Iowa State going to the Sweet 16. Anytime a state can put 2 teams in the Sweet 16, you're talking about something. And so that's why Iowa, they're dancing in the streets because they have Iowa, the upset winner over Florida, and Iowa State. They are both in the Sweet 16. So again, there are my Sweet 16 teams that are still alive: Arizona, Arkansas, Purdue, Michigan, Alabama, Iowa State, Duke, St. John's, Michigan State, UConn, Illinois, and Houston. Now, I've said watch out for Houston. And by the way, they are in the same bracket as the number 1 seed Florida, which was knocked off. I had Florida playing Michigan for the national championship, and Michigan defeating Florida to win the national championship. Didn't happen. So my Final Four is wrecked. I had Duke, Florida, Arizona, and Michigan going to the Final Four. I had Michigan defeating Florida in the national championship game. Well, my pick of Michigan is still very much alive, obviously, but if they win the national championship, it's not going to be against Florida. But watch out for Houston in that bracket. Watch out for Houston. Now, some other brackets you have to watch out for. I think that Duke is going to beat St. John's. Obviously, they're going to have to beat St. John's if they want to continue to the Elite Eight. And that's going to be a big, big Sweet 16 on Friday night. The first game between St. John's and Duke in Washington, D.C., and Duke obviously is the number 1 seed. St. John's is the number 5 seed. And that's going to be followed by UConn and Michigan State. So those are going to be some real big games, important games, obviously, as UConn goes to the Sweet 16. And I'll tell you what, if UConn wins its Sweet 16 game, then watch out for the Huskies going to the Final Four. So my Final Four teams again, 3 are still alive: Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. Florida is out. But if I had to pick 3 teams to watch out for, 3 teams who could very well go to the Elite Eight and or the Final Four, obviously it would advance beyond the Elite Eight to the Final Four. My 3 teams to watch out for are St. John's, UConn, and Houston. Those are 3 teams you've got to keep an eye on. It would not surprise me if any one of those 3 or 2 of those 3 ended up in the Final Four. Again, watch out for St. John's, watch out for UConn, watch out for Houston. I say any one of two of those three because St. John's and UConn, they're in the same bracket, so there's no same region. There's no way they can go to the Final Four together. It's either or. And you could very well have an Elite Eight matchup of St. John's and UConn, and we all know what's happened so far in that series. St. John's has won 2 of 3. They won a close one at the Garden. Then they blew out UConn in the second matchup at the Garden to win the Big East Conference tournament. And then we all know what UConn did to St. John's in Hartford on February 25th, blew them out. But it would not surprise me, again, if St. John's or UConn and Houston ended up in the Final Four. But I have to stick with my picks. Again, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan still alive. Florida is going home. We shall see, but overall 41-11, including the first 4. And a lot of people, again, don't include the first 4 in their overall picks, but I do. And so I'm 41-11 through the first couple of rounds, plus the first 4 of the tournament. So bring on the Sweet 16, bring on the Elite 8 as March Madness continues. That's going to do it for Dan on Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the newsletter. And to do that, all you have to do is go to danonsports.com. See you later.